This meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance as well. If you would mind joining me, we'll begin with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just checked.
Yeah, 10 minutes later.
Roll call, Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
Mr. Jones is checking upstairs. Mr. Tyers, Mr. DeBoer, I'm here. Looking at the agenda for today, it was about 10:45 yesterday morning that I asked that the last item be added, consider reclassification for UB9. We have given final approval to improvements for 9, but we did not take the step to order the reclassification at this point. It has been said throughout that it would be required and necessary and a part of it. I just wondered if today is the time that we want to make sure that step gets done, or we want to wait.
I thought it was an engineering report figured out.
Well,
But we didn't order it. We just approved
there
it.
should be an actual separate motion ordering the reclassification to proceed. And with the project most likely to occur, construction-wise next year, the reclassification would not physically start until we have for sure final design of the overall improvement project.
We had reclassification, we considered for 43, we hadn't taken that step for 9, I just thought that we were adding, I'm not saying it needs to be done now, we're having the lateral on 9 looked at, we could do it at that point too, when we have further report on that, but.
It would be nice to be able to state in the report of 89 branch 2 that reclassification has been ordered, because only the landowners benefited by the lateral will be, paying for the improvements on branch 2. So by us having it officially ordered, we can state so in the report.
So I'd be looking for a motion to approve the agenda today, and that item is either can be included or not. That's up to you guys.
So moved, including support.
Motion by Mr. Jones, support from Mr. Schulte. Any further discussion on today's drainage district agenda? None. All those in favor of the agenda signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Next, we look at our minutes from last meeting. Did request a slight wording change on the consensus of many of the property owners in attendance. We hold off doing any repairs on 43. Motion by the board. Support. Support for the minutes. Motion by the board, support from Schulte, include discussion or question on the minutes. All those in favor of approval of the minutes, signify with aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Sign it in. All right, at this point, we would continue the public hearing on the engineer's report, tile improvements in drainage district 43. Take roll.
Sure.
Jerry did say you have 10 minutes.
Okay. On the continuation, at the original hearing a week ago, it was discussed in the continuation that the hearing was being continued to consider any additional objections, to give until the end of of normal business hours for the auditor office for any additional objections to be filed. So I asked the auditor, has there been any additional objections filed after the hearing that day? Okay, and based upon the listing of landowners and the objections that have been filed, it is our understanding that the objections covered approximately, 430 acres and 430.58 acres, which tallied 19.63% of the acres, benefited acres in the watershed. And the number of landowners opposing by objection tallied 13, and that was out of I guess I don't have that written down. That was a 24.53%. Do you remember what the total land ownership was? I'll just check it here. 53 landowners is what I would have, and 13 objections. So therefore, total objections, again, land ownership, the owners have to be over 50% of the landowners objecting, controlling 70+% of the land mass that benefit lands in the watershed. So with that said, and no additional objections that were filed after that, there is not enough ownership or acres for a remonstrance to end the proposed improvement project. With the fact that we have 2 landowners that were in attendance at the last meeting, I will ask if they have any additional questions, information-wise, that they would like answers to.
No,
At that time?
not for me.
No, thanks.
Okay, and with does the board have any additional questions about the proposed relief improvement project that was presented at the last Tuesday at the initial hearing?
The only question I'm gonna ask you again, you kind of answered it last time, but there's no way we can give any relief to those 2 or 3 or 4 people with acreages. There's no way.
They are treated just like any other landowner in regard to discharge of water. But in the reclassification process, obviously one of the first factors that are involved is how many acres are you benefited. So the benefit per acre aspect, the commissioners, by their oath, basically have to consider the benefit of all lands in the watershed under the same criteria. There is no special treatment to given lands just because they aren't agricultural. Everybody under the code that discharges water to the facility receives the benefit of some aspect because the facility is intended to handle that discharge.
How much discharge are you possibly getting off an acreage that's filled with trees and grass and not tilled?
That is part of the factors used in the classification, so runoff factor and a reduction for runoff, if it's a vegetated area, is considered as part of one of the factors in the reclassification process. So just like pavement is given an increased runoff factor, road systems, industrial sites, those type of things are increased due to runoff. The areas that would be permanent vegetation and trees would be given a reduction in runoff. Any other questions in regard to? If not,
Yeah, did you come up with some cost per foot on those road crossings that I asked about?
no, I did not. Apologize, I have not, but, again, those would be, we can address that as part of any, pre-bid cost estimates, and we will address that as part of the final plan preparation. Okay, hearing no additional questions, what the board is considering is the relief improvement project. One of the things I do wish to state before any recommendations for action here is the fact that the board does have a petition that has been under evaluation for lateral or branch 2 of DD 9, which again, those same lands are served by Drainage District 43. We would recommend that any final plan preparation on Drainage District 43 and the main of Drainage District 9 not proceed until a hearing is held in regard to branch 2 of Drainage District 9. We see it in the interest of the landowners in the district by making this one construction project to reduce overall bidding costs and administration costs if we were doing separate contracts for those 3 projects. The tracking of that would be done by division under the contract. The contractor would have one contract with 3 divisions, and internally, it would basically be a tracking in-house as to the dollar costs that go to each one. And then the administration and bidding costs, administration costs, those items would be split on a per acre basis between the 3 district projects. So, leading into the recommendation on 43, what we would be looking for is an approval of the engineer's report for a relief tile improvement, but would not be looking for the board to direct us moving to final plans and specifications until after the hearing process on Drainage District, or branch 2 of Drainage District 9 is held. And we can speak to that. We are looking to file the report on branch 2 at your next meeting. Will your next meeting be 2 weeks out?
Next Tuesday.
We will go ahead and meet next Tuesday. We can be prepared to file Drainage District 9 branch 2, and then there would be 40 days, again, notice out in front of that, or after that, for a public hearing on branch 2.
In that branch 2, how big is the old tile?
The old tile is a 12 and a 10. And the proposed replacement tile,
10 or 15?
the top end is I believe, I didn't grab that. Do you have your table right there? Yes. The replacement would be an 18 and a 15, again,
You said it was at 45% capacity, now if it was at 100% capacity, wouldn't that 10 and that 12 or whatever's in there now be adequate? So why are we oversizing?
we are just sizing, trying to reach 100% capacity of a half-inch coefficient. With the grade availability and stuff, the 15 wasn't going to be, the relief tile would be a 15 and a 10, or the full replacement would be 18 and 15. So their full replacement, we would not utilize the existing tile that was in there, only we would fully replace it with a new 18. And that would bring it up to,
When did you cheaper just leave the old one there instead of spending $11,000 to crush it and bury it?
it would be cheaper at this time, but then it becomes a long-term maintenance item that the district
You
has.
got $11,000 to maintain it.
That is true. We will be providing both options in the report. So, with that objective, I guess, of one construction project, at this point, I would, recommend the board, consider the engineer's report on DD 43 for, approval for a relief tile main that was presented in the engineer's report.
In your report here, it says modified as deemed appropriate to satisfy the desires of the district. Is that all right to have that language with it?
Basically, what you would be doing is, at this point, we had no requests for other modifications to the relief tile. So at this point, you would be modifying, or there would not be any modification at this point. But you would not be proceeding with final plans and specifications until after the hearing process of Drainage District 9 Branch 2.
Why are we upgrading that branch to, if you're at 45% capacity,
That's a, sorry, that's a separate issue that had received a separate petition, so.
That'll be part of the hearing process on Branch 2.
This would be,
What was that? Oh, you just said, Jason, you questioned him on, what was that?
in the steps, the recommended steps that he's got in the report here, so that we would adopt the relief tile improvement modified as deemed appropriate to satisfy the desires of the district. I guess his answer to that was that the objections and what was brought forth through the hearing process really doesn't indicate there would be a need to modify.
That's correct, unless the board has some
an extra 43 for that.
43.
He's saying the two lateral makes it worth not proceeding to plans and specs today to see what that ends up being and do all three projects for construction purposes as one, rather than approving this report and instructing them to go to plans and specs and bidding at this point. So we'd be looking for a motion to approve the engineer's report and approval for the relief tile main improvement.
That would be correct.
Motion, that, by Mr. Schulte. dead for lack of a second, and I would be curious to hear what other options you would like to consider.
I'm still looking.
Yeah, the, cost estimate for the 43 relief tile is in appendix, B of the report.
Where was that? The piece that you just read, Jason, where about was it?
Oh, that's at
Page 11 on the 43 report.
Page 11?
the item number 3.
I'm still struggling with that modifier. That means you can add to it if you want to. We ran into a situation in that one by Achievement where we ended up having to spend thousands of dollars on extra rock or pea gravel or whatever to put a base in that wasn't originally figured in on the deal. Can that happen here too?
Well, in construction, I mean, obviously in the construction, if there's a change of site conditions, there would be the potential change orders that have to come in front of the board of supervisors as trustees to consider.
And we could deny that or not?
A change order, that is between you and the contractor in regard to, based upon recommendations of the engineer. But yes, the trustees approve any change order to the contract because you, as the trustees, are in charge of that contract for the drainage district.
That's somebody's opinion too. Might be the contractor's opinion.
That's why you have an engineer to provide input to the board, but it is still the action by the trustees that makes the decision. So this modification here would be if in the engineer's report, we were recommending a full relief tile, and the board, based upon input from landowners, wanted to basically approve a partial improvement. You, as the trustees, have the option of making a modification based upon input from the landowners if there was support for some other option. At the informational meeting, we proposed 3 different options. We reviewed those 3 options in the engineer's report again, and after the informational meeting, the general consensus of the landowners in attendance was if we're going to spend money, they wanted it through a relief tile system. Our recommendation in the report that we covered last week was, again, the relief tile system. I do not remember any landowners speaking to the fact of wanting some different option than the relief tile option. So the board is considering the input from the landowners in regard to moving forward with the improvement as recommended by the engineer. The cost estimate until we go to bidding, our cost estimates are an opinion of cost based upon previous construction projects, but until we actually have formal bids, we cannot confirm if those dollars, what exactly those dollars will be, but we try to provide a cost estimate that we feel is reasonable for the project that is proposed.
I'm not sure what is holding us up from proceeding with its approval. I'll support it, so we can have discussion and report a vote, please. We have a motion from Schulte, support from Mayhew. Any further discussion? Or reasons why this isn't, why we should, or why we should proceed? Just look at the code section, it's following the hearing, the board shall order the improvement it deems necessary, desirable, and feasible. I think that's the point we're at. I'm not sure why, or what we would want to consider otherwise with the report that's presented, so. Any further discussion, gentlemen?
So if the board or the trustees don't deem it necessary, then what?
You would have to, go again to legal counsel, based upon past experience. The engineer's report, legal counsel typically, holds to the engineer's report. If the requested relief is to, provide better drainage, adequate drainage to the district, and the engineer's report supports the fact that there is a need for improved drainage capacity for agricultural production, that, the legal counsels will typically hold that you are responsible, or as trustees, you are responsible to fulfill the petition asking for that relief, or have a modified plan as to what you're gonna do for that relief. The trustees typically do not have the authority to determine what's adequate, what isn't on their own, without an engineer's report. That's why the code requires an engineer's report.
But you could look at the report and go, I don't think it's necessary. I mean, because if you're talking, I mean, what you've been talking about with a lot of these things, they're not fixes. I mean, you're upgrading way past what the initial design of the system was, almost like you're recreating a whole new district.
Correct.
And you'd almost have to go through the whole process of setting up a new district, rather than, because it doesn't fit into the repair.
We have that option, then we can present the petition. We chose to proceed in this manner and get a report to say what would be necessary to honor the petition.
And if I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's necessary. After I've looked at your report, and I think you should go another route with it. I'm just.
What is it that makes you think it's not necessary?
I don't know that it's, I mean, all I got is one engineer's opinion. That's what I have. I don't have anybody else's outside looking in opinion on this, but one.
Okay.
The firm we selected because they have the reputation and the licensure to work in this field to advise us.
Yeah, and I get that, and like I said, I'm just looking at it as, I've only gotten one guy's opinion on it. Maybe there's a different route that's cheaper, better. I don't know. All I got is one of it.
Well, the board does have the option to basically appoint a different engineer to reevaluate the options that have been presented. You would have that authority to do such. And, I guess I would ask, before the trustees considered that was part of the reason that we did the informational meeting and provided additional options up front, so that the trustees had more than one option, to consider. We talked about the waterway, grass waterway for surface relief, with the fact that we know that there will be increased discharge coming from Drainage District 9. The landowner, the petitioner, basically was not supportive of the idea of a grass waterway because he's going to have increased flows basically going across it. Also, there would have to be land acquisition and cost tied up in acquisition for construction of a waterway that also brings increased maintenance that has to be evaluated as regard to the waterway. The second option was a partial improvement, considering getting an improvement up to the in between branch 36 and Drainage District 9, where we had more capacity in the segment down below, in the 65% capacity range with the increase, the 65% of the total needs of the overall combined district.
But this thing just kind of continues to snowball on something like, we started with 9, and we added 43, and now we got that lateral 2. And these are all keep adding to this. So is there another section that's gonna be added to this after lateral 2 gets done, or?
Depends
all
on
the
the
land-
land comes in, that's what landowners' right to,
But only the landowners on the laterals have the
Because
right.
it keeps changing the scope of the project, and you keep adding more and more to it.
I made the recommendation that we not proceed with the petition when it came, because I figured as soon as it's evaluated, and they've already said that 9 is likely to overwhelm 43 system, an improvement would likely be needed. I voted against going through this report, because after 9 is approved, he recommended to us to wait a few years and see the frequency and severity of that happening. Yes, it's likely to happen, but can't say how often and when and to what extent.
So that we're gonna add.
On a 4-1 vote, voted to proceed to this point to get the engineer's recommendation to us. And
Based
now,
on that information, now we added 2 is coming on here as
that's a
well.
separate schedule, that 2's
So,
lateral.
but it's all gonna be lumped into the same project and cost.
The only reason that we are recommending that is so that the landowners served by both the 43 system, the DD9 main system, and branch number 2 would get the best cost efficiency by contracting for this work. There is nothing that requires it to be contracted together. That is only a recommendation.
If 9 is approved, it needs to go to construction. If we go out and hire someone to do that, and then a year down the road decide that, yeah, we're gonna go forward with this one, the construction costs are gonna be much higher, the engineer's costs are gonna be much higher for doing separate projects.
But branch 9 is controlled by one person.
Branch 2,
Yeah,
This new one we're talking about.
yes.
43 won't pay towards the construction cost of 9.
I understand that, only there are 4 or 5 different people that are gonna get stuck and don't have any choices. I guess we need to go ahead with this, the way I understand this, but maybe I'm talking for headless, but the more we learn about this, the more I learn about this, the more it's killing some people. It's just killing some landowners. And I'm just trying to figure out is this the right path we need to, as trustees, keep taking? It's killing people.
That is also, I know
You
it's
said it
not,
would be up to $2,500 an acre for some of the land.
And I think we had that option more in accepting the petition, or deciding to accept the petition, than we do now.
I'm just saying, maybe I didn't understand it all when we accepted all this, I'm just saying, I'm learning more, and we need to ask more questions, and that's what we're doing right now. That's what I'm doing right now.
and I agree. I mean, you need to be confident in what you're doing on.
Like Ed said, you're
Because
telling us.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the increased flow coming off of branch 2 into 9, that wasn't figured in on the original.
Yes, it is.
It was figured in on increased flow coming
Increase,
off of 2, into that main
The
tile.
main
It was figured
tile
in at
main.
the end of 9.
9 and 43.
Tile main of 9 is designed for adequate drainage for the whole watershed it serves. We're not improving the side lateral tile systems when those landowners petition for it. But the capacity of the main is sized for the improved drainage for the whole watershed that it serves.
So you upgraded the whole system, figuring that everybody else was gonna increase the flow off all the laterals.
the main is being increased to provide an outlet that the code requires, that you provide an outlet that's adequate
For what's currently there, not what's gonna be improved later.
He said, it's designed to handle the entire district at that level. It's not currently providing that, and the laterals won't provide that until they're improved. But the main is designed to handle the entire district at that drainage level.
You can't improve laterals until the main can take the water.
But if they do, if everybody replaces the laterals, will that overwhelm the system?
No, that's what the system is
That's
designed
what
for,
it's
the
designed for.
entire district to accept.
I don't believe that, I think that's just my opinion.
Well, that, yeah, I can show you in the calculation that all the.
I don't want to see it.
May I ask a question? I think you're having some, I realize a difficult situation, but I think you're having productive discussion about this, and I appreciate the questions all of you are asking. Jason, you said something very interesting and helpful. You had voted against actually proceeding with the report. That's correct. You were outvoted 4-1. And then you went on to say the engineer, and Ivan, you can speak for yourself here, is that correct, that you actually, as engineer, advised the board to wait with 43 and see what happened with 9 for a few years? Is that, because that's news to me. And I would appreciate it if that's correct, that you did that.
We presented that in the informational meeting. That,
Okay.
We know that you will have increased slopes.
Sure.
You do have surface relief on the lower portion of the drainage district, that being the portion controlled by Drainage District 43 facility, and that what we proposed there was a grass waterway as one of the options, where the subsurface drainage would continue to be served by the existing tile main, and relief coming out of the system with the increased flow coming from Drainage District 9 would more frequently come to the surface and have additional flows overland. The amount of time that the tile main of 43 is still under basically pressure. Well, some of the questions that were asked by the landowners in attendance was, what effect will this have on the branch systems coming into the main?
On 43.
On 43, and we had to state that they will be delayed as to when they will actually start taking water, because you will be pressurized on the main until Drainage District 9 water is basically passed off.
So you're saying 43's laterals are not first come, first served, they're not going to feed in first, you think 9's going to provide pressure coming down to 43?
Correct.
Okay, but then back to my original question, that is interesting. Back to my original question, is it correct what Jason said, that you recommended waiting with 43 until 9 went through?
It was not a formal recommendation, but I remember him saying at the end of the 9 hearing that, yes, there's likely to be the need there.
Oh, I remember that too.
It would be reasonable to wait and see. I'm not trying to, you can answer that.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Well, no, I appreciate that, and the reason I'm spending time on this is because I was not aware, Ivan, that you had made that recommendation. I was under the impression you wanted 43 and 9 to go ahead together, so that's good news to me. And I think the board should consider that now if they're having trouble approving 43.
Well, it's not like you can deny the petition. And
I guess
43 submitted a petition to go ahead with the improvements because of 9.
And only because of 9, that's right. Only because of 9.
But you can't deny the petition, so your hands are stuck.
Well, if you did, I guess you'd run the risk that the 43 petitioner could appeal. That's the way I see it. If you did deny it at some point.
Do you have the ability to deny a petition if it meets the requirement?
If you feel that drainage relief is not needed, like you were saying 5 or 10 minutes ago.
Well, I'm going to say personally for myself, I'm not an engineer, I haven't been, and I'm not an expert, but you would have had continual flow of water over the top of your ground most of this summer.
Yeah, when
It
it
never,
I would agree with that.
you would have had a creek there, is what you would have had in 43,
Oh,
all the way.
I don't disagree.
No, Steve, and this is covered in our report also, historically. The issue of doing a joint project, because we knew that DD9 could overwhelm, in a sense, 43 system. We went to an informational meeting back in 2015 under the first petition for Drainage District 9. We had an informational meeting with all landowners in 43, including everybody of 9 and everybody of 43, an informational meeting about the fact that if 9 can approve their project and proceed with construction of 9, and 43 has to receive the water. So we had recommended in 2015 that they consider a joint project together. The people that were there representing 43 below Drainage District 9 were opposed to any improvement project at that time. After the new petition, Drainage District 9's project was approved for an improvement. A new petition was filed on 43 asking for consideration of what needs to be done now that Drainage District 9 was going to improve their tile system. The informational meeting held this spring in April basically laid out 3 options. The general consent of the support there was, if we're going to do this, let's make it adequate to take the drainage long-term from the improvement on Drainage District 9. This system is designed for adequate drainage under current drainage standards under row crop to provide adequate drainage. Is it a Cadillac? No. You could increase this based upon storm event issues that we're seeing and increase it beyond, we're using a combination 3/8 inch coefficient, a 1/2 inch coefficient. Any lands that are landlocked, in a sense, that can't get surface relief would be provided at 1/2 inch capacity. Any lands that have surface relief would be provided at 3/8 inch capacity. That, in addition, is considered because surface water will continue to flow off of the lower portion of Drainage District 9 across the lower lands in 43. There will be discharge there, but nothing to the extent, as was mentioned, if you just take 9 right now and tie into 43, there will be pressurized relief coming at Redwood Avenue. Long-term, whenever that system is pressurized, you may have 2 to 3 days of continuous flow coming across the land down below.
Yes, my understanding of code section 468 is that really a petition is only used for establishing a new district. Our form even kind of looks that way. It doesn't, it's not a petition for improvements or changes, it's a petition for a district. Under code repairs and improvements, section B, 468, 126, 1B, the board may, at any time, obtain an engineer's report. I believe our practice has been when we receive a petition, we consider that. We may request an engineer's report. When we made that decision, we get to the following section after the hearing, and it says we shall order an improvement. So, yes, I believe we had a lot more flexibility and ability to not act on the petition than we do now, personally.
So when 2 comes back around and we decide we're not gonna accept that petition, we're not gonna order an engineer's report for it, that's the end of it?
We already did, didn't we?
Yeah, you accepted the petition and directed us to evaluate.
Get the minutes from that?
They could appeal that, the odds are we lose it, so.
It says we may.
Yeah, but in any type of relief, I mean, the petitioner,
Who has to say about what?
courts.
And they're only gonna sue the district. You can sue the trustees, the district will have to pay that. Defend it.
I would strongly recommend before, when you have a legit request by a landowner in an existing district, that is part of the reason the code was written with remonstrance rights on improvements, is that the code says that if a remonstrance takes place, the trustees basically have no additional responsibility to deny that improvement.
But we also don't have the responsibility to order the engineer's report either.
On a repair, it's basically a requirement.
But not on an improvement.
The improvement, there is discretion, there has to be reason as to why the system is inadequate. And that is why typically legal counsel always recommends that you basically evaluate the petition for merit, and if the merit is there, the capacity is not adequate, that you proceed with a report. You don't have to.
You may proceed with ordering that report, not.
Yeah, you could force the landowners to take you to court.
Which in this case would be the petitioners of 43, right?
And that's what we're dealing with today.
They would have to appeal.
They would have to appeal it to the court system if you deny 43 today.
That's how I see it too. I agree.
And in light of that, I don't know what legal grounds I would use to argue why it should be denied. So I don't see where that's.
Landowners were given a lot of opportunity to become knowledgeable of what was gonna take place. That's why we always recommend on these major improvements that you have an informational meeting to put the information out well in advance when there is no action required by the board.
So by requesting the report, I've almost tied my hands to make sure I have to go through with that program.
If the report came back that, the system is adequate for drainage, then the board has the support to deny moving forward.
But if I think it's all right at 45%, and you got that extra room to go to prove that it's gonna overload it, then my opinion would be to leave it. Because you're not at capacity, not anywhere near.
What's not at capacity?
I understand replacing something if it's at capacity. If it's still being underutilized, I don't understand replacing it.
Well, Drainage District 9 was way under capacity. We spoke in 9's report in 43 with the fact that because 43 was functioning below, because 9 couldn't get its water there.
Because you overload it, and it goes back to the original intent and design of the district. And it was never designed to do that.
It was designed for drainage standards at that time, which we know currently is only 50% of what current day standards are. So you
And I
still
know, and we're still talking about 100-year-old drainage law that still doesn't apply to the outdated capacities and outdated controls. So, you can't have it both ways, you can't sit there and
You can't say the law doesn't apply, that's what we have to follow, whether it's.
But he's saying that we need to come up to what the current recommendations are. Well, the law hasn't been updated for that same period of time either.
But the procedure in the law still operates the same, and there's nothing denying.
I'm just saying what my opinion is on what I think about the drainage law.
Yeah.
I'm not stating a fact, I'm just saying, I think it needs overhaul.
Chapter 468 was rewritten in the 40s, and was updated there in the 40s. Jim Hudson Sr. was one of the legal counsels that was involved very heavily on the rewrite of Chapter 468.
And practices have changed a lot since 1940.
And the law doesn't specify the drainage
nobody envisioned you were gonna have one landowner owning the majority of the property in one district. I don't think anybody ever thought that, because everybody probably went to 80, and it was a lot easier to get a remonstrance done that route back in the day. Like, so that's just my opinion, we're getting off track, but
Yeah, at that time, I don't imagine anybody would consider that landowners would have control of huge, but the intent of both landowners and percent of ownership was considered at the time, and if that landowner has strong enough control, basically he is, paying also a large portion of the cost.
I think the way you're at on the top and the bottom end of the district.
Yeah, and the people at the lower end typically are gonna be opposed to an improvement because they have means of getting their water from their land typically to another facility down below. The landowners at the top end don't have that opportunity, and that is part of the reason the code was written in the form it is. The people down below don't pay as much because they have other means and don't get the same amount of benefit as the landowner at the top end. That person's using the whole system to get that out. Private individual, you as trustees cannot consider the private individual wants, because you are dealing as trustees for the overall district.
And I don't know that we're really discussing deed report and deed improvements here anymore. Is there any reason that we cannot proceed to a vote on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the engineer's report and approving the relief tile main improvements, signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay. Now, initially, we were going to consider final plans and authorizing final plans and specs and proceeding to bidding, and further considering DD 9 lateral 2 potential. At this point, you're advising that we don't take that step until we know what that proceeding looks like.
Until after the hearing on branch 2, because it would be cost effective for all landowners involved to basically do this as one project.
Okay. So are we wanting to order or consider ordering reclassification of DD 43 at this point?
I would recommend that you do, because even, again, because of the annexation that took place, there is lands that have to be brought in. If the project was never constructed, you would still have lands that had to be classified, and you're working with a schedule that was done before they had the capability that we have today. And letting the landowners know you have to approve the project, you also want the landowners to know that there will be a equitable distribution of benefit as to how they pay for this project.
So would we like to, we have a motion to order reclassification of DD number 43, including the main open ditch, tile main and branch, and lateral tiles.
We don't have to reclassify it, you can just stick with the same boundaries we got now.
We did annexation, we're going to have to reclassify.
You could, the only other means that you have to address the lands that were annexed would be, is to spread their benefit based upon the current schedule. And in doing such, if there's inequitabilities in that schedule, you will spread that same inequitability into the lands that you're bringing in. We cannot classify them on a different basis than what the original land was classified in the early 1900s. So any inequitability that is there, because at the time, they most likely were not using usage as one of the factors. So there's gonna be landowners that, at the lower end, that could be paying more money than what they should on this improvement that you just passed. And you know that Drainage District 9 is being, basically I guess you haven't officially ordered reclassification 9, but you cannot separately do lateral schedules under the current schedule that they have.
So
Because
are you saying that the old method is not fair, that it's currently set up then?
that would be a statement that it was considered fair at that time, but did not consider all the same factors that it considered today.
Would that be?
Runoff factor was not considered in that, classification schedule.
So would that be every district then that hasn't been reclassified and reconsidered
Any,
not right?
any district that, typically today, doing a major repair or improvement are getting reclassified because the schedules that they haven't been touched since the early 1900s are inequitable.
And you can reclassify those without having to make an improvement?
You can order reclassification based upon a landowner's complaints that their assessments are inequitable, and you can have an evaluation on the schedule and consider the fact that, yes, there's inequitabilities in it.
Is there a way to see those old schedules?
They're hard printed off, yes.
Yeah, those are not involved. But they're not computerized, they're all in.
I'm gonna take a step back, sorry. Prior to the classification, it says for TC to bidding, I'm just gonna skip past that, but it does identify a joint construction project. You've also shared with me this water quality loan program. You shared that there may be some potentials for
Well,
utilizing that. Can you consider researching that further
Yes.
prior to final construction documents and such, or?
Yes, we do have, there is a handout here, that is a loan program that, under this loan program, there's monies available, but the project has to be, have water quality initiative built into it, to qualify for it. And it is a competitive loan program where you have to put a proposal in to the Iowa Finance Authority, to be eligible for this money. We are looking that there could be, there is a current area upstream in this watershed, that is in CRP, again, originally in Drainage District 9, which is part of 43, but that we would, be able to, there's, I have one other copy of, okay. But, this program is just starting this year. The monies was under Senate File 512 is how the monies were allocated. The money comes from water, water projects in the state, permit fees and other things that are charged for, water projects, water treatment, water distribution systems. And the dollars then are being split between basically a grant process for water and wastewater projects and dollars towards water quality. And what the program is looking for is, or the agricultural side of it, I IDOLS is supporting very strongly in the fact that you could do a improvement project and get a low interest loan, which would be a 1% interest loan. The trustees, in a sense, would be the entity that, the loan, in a sense, is written through for that given district. But instead of paying, 5%, interest on warrants, outstanding warrants, you could use the loan, in a sense, to pay for the project, and the landowners then would only be charged 1% interest. However, the kicker is for this project to, qualify, or to be able to get the loan is IDOLS estate. The only way you're gonna get the low interest money is to have a water quality improvement project as part of that, your overall, drainage project. We do have a area of land upstream in, 943, I guess, at the upper end that is, currently up here that is being, in CRP. We know at the time of Drainage District 9 hearing that he was opposed to the improvement project partially because he's never had good drainage there and he already had it in a CRP program. We are thinking that we can see if there is a potential with that given landowner to consider this program. We don't know if that area by itself is going to be something that IDOLS sees as an adequate water quality project. If we could do something towards the lower end of the system, it would be better. But while we are recommending that the board also authorize us to evaluate additional options under this loan program to see if there's a possibility of getting this loan or putting the application in for the loan. We do have until, to make a decision if we are holding off for a joint project here, holding off until, after branch 2's report. We would have the opportunity to do additional discussions with IDOLS, an evaluation with additional landowners, to see if there would be any support of a water quality. It doesn't change the overall relief project that you've already approved, other than the fact that you're trying to incorporate true private landowners' participation, water quality work that would make the district overall eligible for a low interest. And, a means of reducing long-term impact of the assessments that are coming out of these tile improvements. Again, this is a 20-year loan program, so that you could basically reduce their, in a sense, what they're paying down to more or less principal instead of principal and 5% interest. You'd have a 1% interest. On a large project, this could, over 20 years, is thousands of dollars.
And we're at 6%.
You're identified at 6%, so it's even more. So, all we're saying is this is a new program out there. IDOLS is trying to give strong support to the fact that this could be a means of doing water quality with a district improvement project, and they are willing to work with the individual landowner with water quality initiative dollars for helping pay for the construction of the wetland. So it's hopefully a win-win. The district would probably pick up the additional 25% of that wetland construction, but that is not, you're still getting thousands of dollars savings to the district overall.
So do we want to consider a motion to authorize, my wording here, authorize ISG to explore opportunities through Senate File 512, the state revolving loan program, to benefit 9 or 43 projects?
That's what, right,
Joint construction.
I think it's a win-win for the landowners to see if there's a possibility for this.
So we're gonna table bidding until we get done with branch two's discussion?
Yes.
He's recommending not to proceed to plan inspection,
So
because
need to
they
make a
want to know
motion to
what
table.
two looks like.
Well, we have not, you have not directed me to proceed to plan specifications.
Coming in today, we thought we would consider proceeding to bidding.
I was just going on what was on the agenda.
And he's recommended that we not take that step right now. I think this is within that vein as far as accomplishing going to bidding. So I would like to see us authorize ISG to explore that. Mr. Jones offered the motion, and Mr. Helmers is offering support. My wording was all right, I'll make sure to get that to you. Further discussion on looking into that a little further? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay. Now we get down to where we got three classifications, 43. Sorry, I skimmed over that. Realize that makes quality there better.
Landowners have been told that they're
Just
looking.
as a practical matter, when we have these discussions, do we need to quit when we're done with the votes on 9 and start a new meeting for 43? Since the minutes are separate, the votes are separate.
Yes, you're still functioning for 43 here.
So when we're voting on 9, we would have to reconvene a different, stop this meeting for 43 and then start the meeting for 9, and then vote on 9
That would be correct.
items.
Yes. That would be the proper.
Because it seems like it's all kind of lumped together and it's supposed to be separate and.
That's correct. This is a unique water, or a unique district setup here. You don't see this combination that regularly.
Well, 9 is contained in 43, so it really is consideration for 43 as well.
This is consideration for 43.
But the last item on here for the reclassification of 9 is just for 9.
Yeah, and I made the point when we considered the agenda that it was added late, it was separate. My view would be that this is a meeting of the drainage district trustees. We've identified our potential agenda for drainage district residents. So I thought it would be reasonable. It was originally brought about because we continued the hearing for 43.
And the minutes will exactly know.
Yeah, I'm just saying that we have to adjourn out of 43's meeting in order to vote on 9.
That's not the agenda we approved, but, okay.
Well, I don't, I'm just asking that question now because it seems to kind of, all lumped together, but you're saying that they are separate.
It is action as trustees for separate districts.
Yes. Yeah.
This item, reclassification for DD 43, has always been included in the considerations, the recommendations, the pricing estimates, and with that annexation, almost required, maybe not.
It would be a disservice to the landowners of the district not to reclassify.
So in order to make it fair for everybody, a better shake and reclassify it, I would go ahead and make that motion.
Jones, proceed with reclassification of 43. Support from Mr. Schulte. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify with aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. And order the acquisition of additional right-of-way along the main open ditch facility for the uniform 100-foot wide easement. The open ditch that's currently there isn't designed to be altered, really, correct? So
It will
that
be,
acquisition would be necessary even if we aren't approving construction and plan inspections and stuff at this time.
Yeah, I mean, the right-of-way acquisition, you can proceed with, construction and that separate, totally separate from the right-of-way acquisition. This is, again, just to uniform up a right-of-way and establish a record to right-of-way along that short stretch open ditch.
Where is this open ditch?
From Highway 59 downstream to.
Oh, okay, east of 59.
East of
Okay,
59.
okay, that one, okay.
And it's basically, just over a 1 acre, additional right-of-way acquisition is what it boils down to.
That would come from the land beside the open ditch?
That is correct.
And would I have any right to object to that? How does that work?
And you would have, right to object, at the hearing on the right-of-way acquisition.
Okay,
But typically, that objection would be typically you have no remonstrance right, in a sense, you always have the right to object.
okay,
But your objection should be more or less in the basis of fair compensation or not.
okay,
You do not lose use of that land,
okay,
you maintain the use of the land, but any work of maintaining the district, open ditch, spoil leveling, that type of thing, they have access along the facility on your land.
pursuant to an easement that I would agree to, kind of a thing, or?
Well, it's basically, under drainage law, it's pretty much a condemnation process.
Okay,
They're basically notifying you that they're acquiring additional right-of-way, to have free, non-access along that facility. And in the future, they would not have to pay you damages to access that facility.
okay,
But the land in that right-of-way will be removed from the tax roll of the county.
and purchased from me, a permanent easement kind of a thing, or how does that work?
It's a permanent easement, it's not a purchase. You continue to own the land, you have use of the spoil bank.
Okay,
However, it's removed from tax roll and you're given a compensation for basically that permanent easement.
okay, that would, one-time compensation would cover me for all future crop damages if they come in for repairs, or how does that work? So I would have to negotiate that out for whatever my tenure as landowner would be. I'm a little concerned about that, but we can deal with that more later.
Okay, there will be appraisers appointed. And
Okay.
the appraisers determine what they feel to be a fair compensation. And then there would be, basically in this case, you're the only landowner involved, so then there would be an actual notice sent to you on that appraiser's report, and you would meet with the board about that compensation.
Okay, and tell me again, you're proposing 100 feet as to what is the easement right now, half that, or what are the numbers?
Currently, it's basically, just to outside of the top width of the open ditch.
Okay,
I think there's about 1 acre included in the
Okay.
right-of-way,
mhm,
and, the, additional would be just a, strip of land on both sides for access.
okay. So if we're going out to 100 feet, would it be another 30 feet on each side, or 40, or just rough numbers, you don't have to look it up?
I know that it's, totals,
About 1 acre on either side of the ditch.
Total.
Total,
Half on each.
half on each side.
And the existing easement contains about an acre, did I hear you say?
That would be correct.
And again, the landscape or the topography doesn't change, I would not lose any crop acres, it's just that I'm granting an easement for access, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
And I'm assuming then that this access is from the ditch along 59, nothing coming down from our driveway here.
I assume.
Yeah.
Basically, the district right-of-way, permanent easement is discussed in Iowa Code 468.27.
Okay,
Following establishment of drainage district is deemed to have acquired by permanent easement all right-of-way for drainage district ditches, tile, settling basins, other improvements. Under drainage law, any tile system is considered to have a 50-foot easement along the alignment of the tile. However, it is a unrecorded easement. The district has rights to go in and access it, and then they pay basically damages for crop and everything, every time that they have to access.
Okay.
Okay, on our open ditches, it is common that the district is deemed to have the right of way to the open ditch, and to prevent issues in regard to landowners, fighting in regard to access to that facility, it has been a standard common practice under drainage law in Iowa to have a easement, in a sense, alongside of the open ditch, so that it is very well known and hopefully transferred down to the next generation that there is access provided to the district for that facility.
And that's obtained through this condemnation process and this one-time payment, and, okay,
That's correct.
okay.
And the advantage to you is the fact then that it is removed from the tax roll.
Sure. Provided I get enough money up front that if they come in 10 or 40 years from now and damage a lot of crop, and I still have recourse, okay.
1 acre's worth.
Yes, 1 acre's worth, yeah.
We have counties that do not pay any compensation other than removed from tax roll.
That sounds unfair.
We'd like to proceed with the ordering acquisition of additional right-of-way along the open ditch.
That is something that we can proceed with without having to wait, on branch 2. I mean, we can start putting that aspect together. Separately, the auditor is to appoint appraisers, 2 landowners within the county that do not own land in this district to act as appraisers. The code says the auditor it is common that the board of supervisors as trustees provide her names for people to serve in that role, but the true appointment is by the auditor.
The thing is, that you qualify and capable auditor. Trust to do that.
And one of the appraisers is to be an engineer, typically the engineer that you have appointed on the overall project, but again, you could choose somebody differently. My 10 minutes are up.
Motion for that?
Yes.
Yeah. Support that?
Motion by Milmer, support from the board, to proceed with acquisition of additional right-of-way along the main open ditch facility. Provide uniform 100-foot wide easement. Further discussion? All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay. That leaves us at the consideration for reclassification to Drainage District 9. We don't want to act, we can strike that or table it, or, but you said it would be a benefit to, in proceeding with the lateral work, to know that that has been ordered.
You could, just to relieve any concerns, I'll make a suggestion, that the board, table action on this until your next meeting, and put it on the agenda as an item under Drainage District 9.
And make that motion to table that for the next one. When you have these codes, so we got a motion to support.
Support to consider that at our next board meeting, tabling it today. Any further discussion? That should have been, we table it. Any other discussion? All those in favor, signify with aye. I will record it as opposed.
I mean, in instances like this, where you have these things connected and everything, I mean, essentially it's one district, once you tie all this stuff in together, wouldn't it make more sense to dissolve one of the districts and give all those rights to one or the other, either the 9 or 43, rather than trying to maintain two separate districts every time we have one of these?
Yes, what we would suggest as this project, the combined project goes to bid in construction is, however, you're gonna need a schedule to pay for the improvements 9 separately from 43.
But I have noticed that before you ever got further along in this process, they've taken other drainage districts that are looking at improvements like this before you tacked on the debt. That way, when you dissolved it, there was no debt to be assumed by combining it with that other district, and you hand those rights over at 9 or 43 or however you decided to do it. Maybe in the future going forward, we should look at doing that.
That was part of the discussion back in 2015.
I wasn't here in 15.
Yeah, so that was part of the discussion. Do we combine the district and basically, the landowners of 9 have currently, because they're a separate district in control of a certain portion of this facility, they had the rights to be able to push this forward. 43 was made aware, the lands below 9 were made aware that 9's considering the improvement. You could have combined the whole thing before taking action on 9 or 43. But then by bringing it together, the landowners below actually then have additional possibility of controlling the vote on the overall improvement project. So this was discussed that by merging it together before the action of 9 or action of 43, you do affect the possibility of voting in regard to improvement to those individual facilities. So what we would recommend here is after construction is completed, you assess the improvements, that it be noted in the record that it is recommended that these districts be combined, but they have to be out of debt before you can combine them. And so it most likely is gonna be 20 years.
So like I said, ideally, from the get-go back in 2015, they should have just dissolved one of these districts and made it all one. And I think maybe going forward, as these things come together, where one is interdependent on the drainage for the other one, request that one of them file for dissolution just to combine the whole thing.
That was discussed in 2015.
But do they all have to vote on it? Whether
Yes.
they wanna-
Yes. Both districts have to basically support.
And at that time, it didn't seem that 9 would probably vote to do that because it would lessen the chance that they would be able to
Get their project improvement.
So landowners still have major part in it.
Okay.
Because I have seen with Winston County, they combined some of those down there.
Well, I've been involved in a major, project down in Woodbury, or Monona County, where, we dissolved one district, but we had to annex all the lands of the upper district into the lower district, and then go through a hearing process to actually approve dissolving, the district up above.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Jones, support from Schulte for adjournment. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify with aye.